I mean, when I go to Delaware,
It keeps
and
it.
I did everything back roads and stuff, and I just fired on the highways and stuff like that. I think total can get down to 13.
I get in enough trouble with my wife, so.
26 or 28
Wait,
total.
you're not around, Hank, you're not missing this. Sorry.
Anybody else need a pen or anything?
Not you need a pen.
Forget it, Stacy.
Stacy,
I
forget
think
it.
she's got one, yeah, Kathy's got one for
I
her.
got a whole
She always
bag
has
here. Here you go,
Thank you.
sir, sure. This was my kids in school.
No.
Call the meeting to order, pledge to the flag. Pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
First roll call is for council, Mr. Arndt,
Here,
Ms. Cook, Ms. Eisenhart,
Here.
Ms. Falcone, Ms. Hassler,
Here.
Ms. Hummer, Mr. Stofflet,
Here,
and Mayor Miller.
here.
Next roll call is municipal authority, Mr. Sprankle,
Here.
Mr. Reppert,
Here.
Mr. Meitzler.
Here.
Okay.
Yes,
And the purpose of the meeting is because we remember the last time the rates increased, you all spanked us, or spanked the prior council. So we're gonna have a meeting to discuss increasing rates over the next few years. Scott, you wanna start us off?
I'm new to this and I don't have all the information except for what I've gathered since I've been here, but I'm doing pretty, we'll see how it goes. Basically, there's a ton of work that's gotta get done between everything, between the sewer plant, pipes under the roads, so on and so forth. Stacy had, and this was right when I got on the council, so Stacy had a gentleman come in here from wherever it was,
PFM.
TFM, about rates and stuff like that, and we had taken out a loan for all these different repairs and stuff like that. They suggested, if I'm not recalling, it was a 10% increase. And we were like, yeah, no, So we've been going back and forth, trying to come up with a fair amount that will not only help pay that, but to actually put the borough in the green, which I don't think they have been for quite some time over the years, long previous to me being here and most of the other folks that sit here. And through a lot of crunching numbers back and forth, and probably not the most friendly conversations, we've kind of come up with a rate, I think, Lane, if we're agreeing on this, of about 5% for both water and sewer. And then that way, if it covers it, we shouldn't have to touch it for about 5 years. Unless, obviously, there's some kind of emergency that we're not aware of or unforeseen circumstances, and that will also help pay for an additional, water treatment sewer person over at the wastewater treatment operator, which will help pay for that, because we are definitely short-handed. We got a guy down there that's working 7 days a week, basically 365 days a year. And to be honest with you, if that guy gets sick or hurt and he's out, ain't nobody flushing toilets or having running water, and I think everybody's gonna blow a gasket even worse then. So that's what we're up against. So that is my spiel.
That's for residential, right?
What's that? 5%? I'm saying both. For I'm sorry, I apologize.
Yeah.
That is, thank you, Carol. That is, for residential. For the commercial, industrial rates, prior council, Elaine can answer this one a little bit more for me. They had an increase of, what was it, Elaine?
We did 50%.
And-
So in 2023, the council member had looked at what our commercial, industrial, and residential rates were, because we have a shortfall in our water account, and I don't think in the sewer account it was that bad at the time. And we could see that we were gonna have a problem moving forward. She looked at the rates, and we had been charging, doing the same increases and having the same rates for all of our customers, residential, commercial, and industrial. She looked at increasing the commercial and industrial users by, ideally, to balance our budget a few years out, we needed to increase it 100 to 110%. Stacy had come up with a number of 110% increase was necessary for commercial and industrial users in order to make them where they should be in relation to the residential people, users. And we decided in 2023 that we were only going to raise commercial and industrial by 50%. And moving forward, we were going to jack it another 50% to at least come up with 100% difference between where they were in 2023 to where they needed to be. We were trying to gradually step it up over time. We have Scott had worked up and Stacy had worked up some numbers looking at an increase of residential users at 4% and commercial and industrial users for next year to be up 25%. To step them up, we've already increased them by 50%. We want to step them up 25% in 2027, or 2026, and then in 2027 step them up again to their another 25%. Then everyone will be at a 4% increase for the remainder of, was it a total of 5 years? 5 years.
But we want
That's,
to go,
and
not 4%, we want to go with 5.
yes, so we looked at 4%, we looked at 5%, and the reason we need to do this is because the infrastructure improvements for water and for sewer are about $1 million. It's about $300,000 and change that was needed for the sewer plant. infrastructure improvements, and most of that money is for the pump station, the balance of money that's needed for the pump station on Washington Street to be replaced. The $700,000 was an increase that was needed in the water fund account in order to take care of infrastructure improvements. We have a lot of failing pipes. Stacy can talk more about that. As you know, that's nothing new. But we wanted to get some of those pipes done before we started repaving. We also borrowed $1 million to fund the road repairs that are needed. So it's, there was 3 different areas that we had to look at making improvements. And unfortunately, they're necessary for water and sewer. That's the only way we can generate the revenue needed, is to do an increase. And we're trying to do it as nicely as possible. So Scott went and worked on a 5% increase, but the first 2 years of commercial and industrial would be increased by 25%. And that's what we wanted to talk to you about. Stacy has an opportunity to possibly get a free study done by RCAT, which is a federal agency that can maybe work some numbers for us and give us kind of a projection of how we can achieve the amount of revenue we need for these improvements. That's what we wanted to talk to you about.
And like you said, plus an additional operator.
Yes, well, we have to look,
at
the numbers that we currently have, I think, include the second operator.
Mm-hmm.
We had a second operator, but he was lost in the fall. And because we're going through some other business currently with some contract negotiations, and because we had to balance the budget and work on some unknowns financially, we did not refill that position. So I think Kyle left in October, I think, somewhere in that time. So Alex has only been working solo. I'd say only, it's terrible. This guy's being really worked every day because we have no one to relieve him who's certified. So we're looking to try to hire another person to get somebody in there at this time. That's something that's in the works. But I think our numbers that we need reflect, like our current budget reflects the cost of the other operator. We didn't fill that position because we weren't sure if we were going to need that revenue for some other things that are going on currently.
My understanding is in the past, again, only from what I'm hearing, from the numbers that we see, they've always been a shortfall. For years they were taking something to fill in here, they never had the money for it. By doing this, one, it's a little bit less painful than what the company was calling for at 10%. Two, by the end of it, you're looking at a $487,000 to the positive. That never was before, is my understanding. Like, they were always shortfalls somewhere. What we're trying to do is eliminate that so that we're not consistently borrowing money to have to, or stealing it from somewhere else to pay this stuff, that it can actually take care of itself and start generating it more on a profitability basis versus taking something from here and taking something from here. And then we can improve everything that needs to be improved upon. Because my understanding is a lot of, it's a lot of stuff that has to be repaired. So it was neglected, not neglected, but just worn out over time.
Well, in 2023 and 2024, in order to balance, and Stacy could probably speak more to this, in order to balance the water and sewer fund, we had ARPA money that we used. We had grant money from the government that we took portions of, and we used that to offset our negative balance to make us whole and balanced in our water and sewer account. And I don't know if Stacy, maybe you could, talk about how much money that was for those couple of years.
We got it total, it's because of COVID and the state got it through the federal government. And we qualified for 300-some thousand, and part of that, the remainder is gonna go toward the Washington Street Pump Station. And we should have only used it as a municipality for large infrastructure for water, sewer, things like that. So that's why that was devoted, those monies were devoted, and we needed them, so they came in quite handy.
So in 2023, and I think this is accurate, we used about $32,743 of ARPA money to balance the water account, the water fund. So we were negative that amount. And then in 2024, we used $60,000 roughly to balance the water fund account. That was in water. Then in the sewer account in 2023, we transferred from the general fund, ARPA funds in the amount of $101,525. And then in 2024, we had an LSA grant that we used in the amount of, oh, actually, is that the amount that we're using now towards?
For
So,
Washington Street,
yeah,
because
so-
it didn't get done.
Yeah, so we had, I just have a note here, that $189,225 was from an LSA grant. That's part of the grant we got to put towards the pump station repair work that's needed.
And according to this, the last time there was an increase was 2022.
In
Or
2023.
2023 for ordinance 5. So,
But you're talking just the residential.
Well, the residential and the commercial went, and it all went up in 2023, and then they tacked another 50% on last year.
Yes,
Correct.
that's
On
correct.
commercial.
On commercial and industrial.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Yes, that's correct.
which was done, that was just a note put in the bill that they were getting socked. You remember we talked about that?
They were getting socked.
Well, they were getting an increase. It was just a slip in the bill, and
And at the time, our president, and actually, a lot of us were newer at the time, and we had never experienced even meeting or having a conversation with you, and that we should have been in touch with you. And we dropped the ball on that as a council to let you know before that got put in there. You only meet yearly or bi-year, or twice a year, or?
we meet when we're needed to.
Yeah,
When
whenever
you-
we get called.
So, you're a committee, honestly, I don't think the council really realized that we should have, had a conversation with you. And Michelle had worked on all these numbers and we had talked about it, but it never came where you were invited to a meeting to know about
Well,
it, so.
We were invited to a meeting, and Ethan was pretty confrontational with
Yes,
us.
he was,
Yeah.
yes, he was, he was not,
Bruce, I guarantee you I won't be.
that was, that's unfortunate. Anyway, so we're trying to keep you informed now because we don't want it to repeat the past.
I was wondering, what kind of responses from the commercial and industrial did you have from our customers, I guess?
With the previous increase?
With the 50% increase, yes.
Some it hit hard because they're large users.
So you did some complaints?
There was only one that came to a meeting.
Right.
The laundromat came to the meeting to explain to us the impact on his business. It was very calm and cool and collected and non-confrontational. It was just wanting to keep us informed.
And part of the reason I think he came is because he had recently purchased that business.
Yeah.
And so what he had done is he had calculated all of his costs and revenue based on, the income it was gonna generate. And of course, that affected his bottom line, which then affected, trickled it on out,
And
so.
you say that it's putting possibly out of business, or?
No, he
No.
said he'd have to
Yeah,
raise
not
rates.
him, but the other
No one else.
restaurants and whatever.
Nope. He was the only commercial establishment.
Pardon?
He was the only commercial establishment that spoke.
That's what.
Mhm.
And we want to try to make the public aware of this as best we can so that we can have some input. But honestly, regardless of their input, our costs are what they are. This is not a for-profit business we're running. We have a small amount of users. I mean, we have, where's my, I think
51 commercials.
Yeah, 51.
we have,
21 industrial.
we have 762 tax-paying properties, so that's just, so you know, we have 2,041 people, but water and sewer customers total 925 as customers, including some from Long Swamp. So, of that number, the 50,
Industrial at
51,
12.
2 is commercial.
Industrial at 12 and 51 commercial. And the 51 commercial, that's what.
51 commercial and 12 industrial.
12 and 51.
The 12,000, 12 users are industrial, and
Right.
51, I
Don't
think.
remember if that is
Out of the
on.
700.
Yeah, you had an increase of customers with the Howman House now as a separate customer, and another from,
That will happen in the near future.
oh, I thought it already took effect.
No, we're in the beginning of that process. There's gonna be engineering and costs that we have to figure, and our engineer's working on it, but it's gonna
Okay,
take.
'cause I was talking to one of the managers there, and they were under the impression when, last month or so.
We started conversations on it, but we didn't.
Well, I guess they officially separated from the Topton home, the
Okay.
Nikon then.
Well, they may have as far as legally, but
Mhm.
as far as the water and sewer we have to provide, or is it just what, we're doing both?
Both.
Both, then,
Yeah.
water will be the first, and you. We have to put in piping to make that happen, that's gonna be some time. And they'll have an impact fee for, you know, tap in and all that.
Excuse me, Stacy, is the high school also on the public water and sewer? I can't remember.
It must be,
Yeah.
yes,
Yeah, it is.
yes.
I also have a breakdown, if you're interested, in the properties in Topton. Out of 783 properties, and some of these are not taxed properties, because we have churches that are exempt, we have municipal property and the school. So we have, in residential in Topton is 658 residential units. We have 27 vacant properties, so they would be excluded probably from water and sewer, I'm gonna assume. 1 mobile home. We have 20 mixed-use properties. We have 17 industrial properties, according to what's in the public records. We have 31 commercial properties, and we have 8 apartment buildings. And of those 783 properties, there are 762 that are tax-paying properties. The exempt properties are the borough, the church, the school, and there's 21 of those properties that are tax exempt.
And as far as.
Property tax exempt.
Yeah.
Property tax exempt.
And as far as.
Now, as far as water and sewer, you know, that might not be relevant to that, but it's just
So we
the
have-
numbers I have here.
12 industrial for water and sewer.
Yes, but with the public records.
But public record
And
gives
you have
us
to
all
also remember
industrial.
that there's apartment buildings are segregated out, so there's 8 of
Yeah.
those. In the commercial, it says there's 32, but our users also include some of Long Swamp, so these are Topton's numbers.
And then we have the Topton home, that's, I don't know.
Which may be considered a Long Swamp property, because that's not in, that's in Long Swamp Township, it's on the edge.
It's just going some
So that may
township,
not
but
be
it has a
reflected.
separate contract.
Right.
Yes, yes, yeah,
For
that's,
sewer currently.
yeah.
Yeah, which is, it's a large amount of our income and whatever.
And it's a fixed number, so we're not gonna be able to see an increase on them, unfortunately.
Well, no, it increases automatically when it's figured on our cost units. So if our costs go up, then in other words, it's automatically increased when our costs increase, or what we charge people.
Right, they're billed once a year for part of our loan,
And then the rest of all 4 quarters is based on a percentage of our actual costs
Correct.
during that
So
quarter.
it goes up automatically.
Mhm.
So it's, yeah, I've been,
And there's no way to increase that?
it automatically increases.
increases when the rates.
But it's,
Yeah, but if you're asking for
The
more money
percentage.
to run the water and sewer, and we're gonna hit the residents and the commercial and industrial, they should get it too.
My understanding is their contract is
Fixed.
fixed for however long it is.
But it's
so-
fixed to our rising costs, so it does go up automatically.
So it'll-
Not proportionate, I
It's
guess.
just
That's
not
what
as-
I'm getting at.
Yeah,
It's
it's
not
not as
proportionate to
proportionate.
cover what we need to operate,
and
and that's wrong.
Well,
That,
it
you're right,
is,
that is
contract.
right.
it's
It's the
automatically
contract.
proportionate in the
the
contract,
calculation does not change.
but it's a
the cost-
percentage of our costs. So if
The
our
percentage,
costs,
but that percentage
if our
never
budget
changes.
goes up, then
What
there's
is that
price.
percentage?
It's a whole calculation.
Yeah,
If you'd
it's-
like to see it, I'd be more than happy to show it to you, but
And then they
formula
pay
within
part
the
of
agreement.
our structural loan or,
Correct.
correct?
Yep.
So that seems to be a pretty good contract.
For them?
For them.
For
yes.
No, no, for us, for,
No, because they won't get whacked.
That's what, they're not gonna get whacked with the increases the residents, the industrial and commercial properties are.
So if we say we go 5%, theirs might be 2. Just
Or
because
it could be
however,
7, I
however,
don't know.
you know, I don't know what the contract is, but I
yeah,
guess it's
it's
very long.
a percentage of our budget,
Actual, what we spend, yes.
yes. So, you know, that's, so this increase residential is supposed to be, so the increases, it'll affect them just as much as it does our budget.
No, see,
No, you're,
But we can't pass any of these costs on to,
yeah, the costs are automatically passed to
no, but
our
that's,
budget.
what we're saying is that that's going up, yes. But what we want to do here is to increase beyond that.
Well,
And we can't do that with that organization.
yeah, we can.
No, because it's already contracted in.
Then it's a percentage of our,
But a calculated percentage.
But if,
if our budget goes, if our costs go up, then what they're paying us quarterly
Goes up.
goes up automatically. So it's not fixed.
but it might not be 5%. You're right, it could be 7.
Yeah, it
also
could be a lot
2,
more.
But it could be 2. You know, I don't know what their contract is, I have no idea what it is.
Well, it's just a percentage of
Yeah.
our,
And I mean, like Bruce,
and
unfortunately,
then
that's
it's
what they're.
a set amount of
I
our loan.
understand that, but I just think it's not right. I mean,
It isn't right,
Oh,
because
no,
the
we
way the
discussed that,
contract was
yeah, it
written,
sucks.
we can't do anything about that until
So
it comes up
there
for
is,
renewal.
there is one saving grace to the contract that although our loan at our wastewater treatment plant is coming shortly to an end, the contract with Lutheran Home still holds that they once a year pay us over $40,000 a year.
Just with our
Yes.
structural loan or,
Yeah, just for the loan, they still have to pay
Is
that.
that gonna go towards our new loan, the
Yeah.
continuation of that new loan?
It,
We have 2 more
it ends,
years?
yeah, sure,
No, our new
sure.
loan starts in,
Sure, but then for all these years after that, we're still getting over $40,000 from the
Yeah.
Lutheran
Oh,
under that
okay.
agreement.
yeah, it's a pretty good contract as far as I know. I did have one thing I suggested to Stacy a couple times to bring up to we have so much empty property. I mean, we have this corner up here that I guess I spent $200,000. We have quite a few what we closed off streets. They're empty properties, and we have someone that has to go mow. I think they do it twice a week. And if we would sell those, you have the building lot, which would get quite a bit of money, plus you get property tax and school tax, and it's not a constant drain. So there's probably, I'm guessing, about 20 building lots we could probably sell and you'd get that much more tax money too.
Where are you speaking of?
Well, over here by the storage units, there's one of the, it was a road, going to be a road, and it's made not a road. Down on between Smith and Penn, where the new houses are, that was a road there, a gravel road. And they closed it off and just, so now the mowers, our people have to go there. He's riding his mower all over town, and I hear, he goes by my window. And so it's a lot, so we're losing the tax money, plus it's a constant maintenance. So if we sell, I would imagine a building lot with 100,000, I don't know, 50,000, you got sewer, water, everything already there. And then you would get that much, $10,000 dollars in tax money every year just for each of the lots. So there's quite a number of those. Now here would be a commercial unit, you could sell the corner lot to, whatever, a little restaurant, whatever. But anyway, there's a lot of those properties around Topton.
I don't know if they're still developing, because some of those paper roads that we kind of sold off and it became people's properties, like people bought.
Not down, not on
Not down
Smith
your,
Street.
not what you're referring?
That's part of the stormwater though, isn't it?
No,
No, that's
no,
not
the
section.
stormwater is
Okay, it's down further.
up 2
Okay.
houses. But no, those are, and, the people know it's not their property, and we have to go and mow it, like I said, twice. And these are big, nice, right in the middle of the nice development down over there. And over here by the storage units, I'm not quite sure that
Which storage units?
By the fire
near the
company?
Med Ed.
Oh, Bartley,
By-
oh, yeah, well, wasn't that owned by that land's between the
Joe-
Alberts used to own and Cyber, Dennis used to own.
Oh, those storage units on off of Home Street or the ones on High Street?
Well, I think it's next to the townhouses and,
Are you
The
talking the
storage.
ones over on East Barkley?
Yes,
Yeah.
yes, that's where he's at.
Well, there's
Okay.
Walbert's, owns was one storage on the one, well, Jeff used to own that.
Yeah.
but it was a dirt road. I'm just assuming it was treated like the other one down near me,
Are
but.
you talking the dirt road that goes next to the storage units?
Correct, it was a
To
road.
the alley, to Broad Alley?
Yeah, it was a road at one
Yeah,
time.
that butts up
Somebody
to,
owns those.
it used to be Mrs. Zimmerman's property. That butts up to Mrs. Zimmerman's property, and it butts up to it's just that road. That's all that it is. It's nothing more than just,
I mean, it's
that.
big enough for a building lot.
I don't think it
50
is.
foot is what the building lots on my block
Is that
are.
50 foot?
Yeah, but-
No, I mean, it's something we can, I don't know anything about this, I thought they were somebody's property, I thought
Yeah, I
somebody
thought that
Yeah,
we
no,
already.
yeah, we're-
Except for this one.
yeah, that,
Yeah.
That's
And-
owned by the people.
Us.
there might be others, like the parking lot up there, I don't know if you can sell, parts of that, or, I'm not, I just know down at my street down there. And then, of course, this one over here. So it's a source of income, and we're losing income on those. So I just want to bring that up. So if you want to develop a committee or whatever to check all those properties out. I'm not sure on the corner over there by, where the water tanks, where they just cleaned the brush out, chopped the tops of the, going over towards Decca and the high
That's
school.
owned by Deca.
That corner is all from Decca.
Yeah.
Because I know the water, isn't that part of our water there? That was just taken care
I
of?
don't know, that corner property was where you're talking, was always owned by Caloric, and that went with when Deca bought it.
Oh, okay, you mean the triangle. Yeah, that's.
Like right up, yeah.
Right down
Yeah.
from you.
Yeah, I just know, isn't those our water tanks there though?
No, that tank was for Caloric.
Oh, okay, I
I don't know if that was an acid tank or what, but because the pickle room was right down by there, so that
Okay.
tank was Caloric.
just
Yeah.
thought some of that was our property.
No.
And the parking lot, by the American Legion is.
That's the Legion owns that.
Yeah,
The
that's
whole big
Legion.
part.
The whole lot.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
I don't
that's
know that
all.
we have as much stuff that we could sell off, and I don't know that even though the whole issue with purchasing the Leibensberger Ice House property and leveling that was probably not a good idea. We have about $145,000 invested in that lot for the acquisition of the real estate, which I think was 136.
Oh,
And I think Burkholder charges $10,000 to raise the house and clean that up. Even though we own that, it probably was not a good idea at the time. That has now been kind of incorporated into our master park plan, and we are so limited with land in our public park here. I don't know that at this point we'd want to get rid of that land, because like when we want to have an event, we don't have land. We put the basketball court right in the middle of where, like, the very limited land we had. The placement could have probably been a little better on that. But I don't know that we want to get rid of any land, but it is a good thought, thinking out of the box,
Yeah,
ways to generate
you know,
revenue. We're selling off the trees in our forest,
yeah,
and we're expecting to hopefully generate, we don't know yet, about, like, when I calculated numbers, I was looking at about a $94,000 amount of revenue if things go well, based on the catalog of trees and the money we should be getting. That money's supposed to go towards the water well, hopefully in Long Swamp. This is the backup well that we have to drill over at the fire company, so hopefully that'll
are we required to have a certain amount of park area, or?
probably. But we really have inadequate. If you look at our community and
Just
other communities, we have
with that
nowhere
whole-
to go. That car show, we have nowhere to go.
I don't think hardly anyone in town knows there's a really nice nature trail and park up there where we're taking the logs.
Oh, right, I know.
Yeah, it's really pretty and very nice and loaded with morel mushrooms.
Oh, is it?
Oh,
All
yeah.
right, now I know where to go.
But,
Thank you, thank
but
you,
a lot
that's
of people don't, aren't aware that it is a really nice place. So if we need percentage for it to be in the park, that should be included.
So what are your thoughts on what we've discussed?
Well, from what you were saying, you're looking at bringing this up to a point and then not having any increase for 4 or 5 years or something on this one.
No, it's actually a
No.
4 or 5% increase.
Per year.
It's per year for
5 years.
5 years.
5 years, and then it'll.
Well, we don't know,
But
because
we don't
we
know,
don't know.
because again,
That's just looking 5 years out.
everything goes up every other day.
Yeah, I know.
We're trying to nip it in the bud before it winds up like that company was saying,
Our financial advisor set us up with what, we already secured the loans for the need that we have. And now we have to come up with a revenue to pay for the loans. And we're looking at starting an increase for the beginning of 2026. So that's why we're talking to you about this now, because we're gonna have to approve something a few months before we get to the end of this year, maybe a quarter. It'd be good if we had this approved by September. It'd be good if we could get that pre-study done by RCAP to,
you probably have it over there. It looks like this, and it's like residential. It says 2025, 2026, 2027, and you can see like water, sewer, and it's showing you, this one's at the 4% increase. It goes, for argument's sake, 2025 is 145.80. 2026 is $147.89, and it goes up to like 153.80. 157. Now this is just residential, and it's 157 based on what you see here, like 4,000 gallons. Aluminum materials like 4,000 gallons, and then the sewer's underneath it. It's an increase that, like we've all talked, it's got to come from somewhere, and we're trying to figure out the best way for the minimum. I'm not looking, so like, I'm in a household of 2 incomes, not every resident has that. And that's what we're trying to, like, the financial guys are saying, whack, 10% right off the bat. None of us feel that we can do, like, we can't do, you know what I mean? So we're trying to find the minimal impact that we can feasibly kind of come up with where we're not consistently in this pattern from the past of relying on grants or this or that, because if we don't get them, now you're in the negative. And this thing is going to, like, and that's what the financial planner had put out. I was gonna say it was 2027 or 2026 where we didn't have enough money to do it. It was going to be in the negative, and it was quite a few $1,000s.
We were aware of that though back in 2023. I mean, we raised water rates 20% in 2023 on residential. If you remember that, then we did, I'm sorry.
No,
Oh, really?
And then we raised the 50% for commercial, which took place the second quarter of 2023.
Last, the council gave us the impression that our residential charges were above the standard in the area.
They are.
And then, so that's, but they said commercial was way below, that's why it's 50%. But they never said anything about another 50% or
Well,
anything.
no, actually,
If you look
Michelle
at
did say that.
his 5% increase, the commercial and industrial is gonna go up 65% in 5 years. That's a lot of money.
Yeah.
And then the top 25% to the residents.
Yeah.
I wasn't happy the last time, and I'm not happy about this.
So we're not putting 25% up on the residential.
But it's gonna be
Over 5 years.
25% over the
Over
5
5
years.
yes.
Oh, yeah, over
yes.
5 years ago, you know?
That's correct.
I'm not happy with it.
No,
And
we're
our
not either.
concern too is, as a authority or whatever, we want to encourage businesses and people to move in to bring income and jobs, and attacking them by trying to get all our sort of blood out of them by, some of the increasing, trying to get money this way. You might be hurting yourself in other ways, you know.
So we have to come up with $1 million worth of revenue.
And the
For-
downfall is,
We have very few users on the system. That's
the
the
back end of
problem.
it was bad. Those systems are bad, and they've gotta be upgraded. And that money just doesn't come from, wishful thinking, hey, I would love a new business to go into town and stuff like that, but, I lived here in the late 70s and the early 80s, and they're pretty much the same. You get a couple here and there, but you haven't drawn that kind of interest in years. It's gotta come from somewhere, and unfortunately, I don't like it anymore. We all live in the borough, so we're all, there is no really other way, like you were saying, hey, we could sell off this or that, but that's hoping somebody buys it.
Oh.
And that's hoping that they make a profit off of it. And then until that goes through, we still have to pay for this stuff
Well, it's
somewhere.
more the property tax that we're losing and not getting, and
Right,
also the maintenance and whatever, and,
and I get that, like I said, most of us, that's part of us being here. I'm staring at what I've gotta deal with now and in the future,
Our problem is that we can't really grow our system because Topton's built out. I mean, I don't even know how many residential sewer tap-ins we have left. I mean, for those lots, we have them, we some, but I mean, most of our town is built out. All of our real estate's pretty much taken up.
well, we're the ones that take care of outside of the borough. So, there's growth, we were gonna have some developments out past
Oh,
Jefferson,
Yes.
and this, but I don't, I'm not
That
sure
was something-
financially how that would help the borough much, or.
And then we get soft on school tax because that was all gonna be, large tract, high-density residential. The Grande was gonna
And then at
be.
one point, we were supposed to take care of Long Swamp, Mertztown itself,
Right, that's a whole nother,
So I don't know what's happening with some of those type of projects.
it's a terrible dilemma. that we're in,
But
trying
compared,
to only raise it enough to, I mean, really to cover what we need to cover. We're trying not to beat everyone up, but
Yeah, I know
it's hard.
DECA, when, was that Lions was putting in their septic and stuff, DECA was going to, pay part of, was going to do a large portion of it, but then the Borough, Lions didn't want to do that. I was wondering if there's any way to, for maybe an interest-free loan or whatever from DECA, or if they need to, you know, some kind of services, or, I don't, do they, we don't, I'm not sure if we supply water to them?
Yes,
We do?
yes.
So, yeah, I didn't know if, you know, some possibility there of getting an interest-free loan or grants from them.
Well, there's nothing that they really need from us to do that. I mean, they already have sewer service to their facilities.
I think they were planning, hoping to build a warehouse next to it, but everyone got
But that was
mad.
abandoned, and the only opportunity we had was about, I'm gonna say, 2005? Yeah, it could have been 20 years ago, when all that farmland was sold. Grande was going to, they had offered to give Topton, I think it was $1 million or 1.5 million in money to help grow our sewer plant,
Mhm.
just so they could pack us with houses, so we would be a parking lot of homes, which wouldn't work just because of the quality of the stream and the issues with the Little Lehigh, and it never ended up coming to be. He ended up getting divorced and sold all his real estate assets, and that property then was bought by DECA, and then other farmers had bought land, and that whole thing fizzled out probably 15 years ago.
Yeah. And then also, we gave approval, or partial approval for Bowden to build townhouses up here
That was for,
for senior.
Wasn't that the next to Tony's?
it was
That was
Greg
next to-
Perry's place he purchased with the workshop. And I think he
Next
wanted,
to Tony's.
there's currently a workshop,
No,
and
these were nice villas that he was
he
gonna
was
put up
going
here
to
at the
make a
Topton
work, he
home.
was gonna, up there.
Yeah,
No, I'm not aware if anything ever took
Yeah.
place. He never, I don't think he ever
that
got.
might have been before you came.
I remember when he purchased that property, but I don't, and that was
And he,
over 10 years. 15
so he
years.
was just getting, future permission if he, for water and sewer hookup possibilities.
Maybe.
And, these were, I think duplexes or,
Yeah, I don't know anything about that, other than that may have come to council prior to,
That points to my whole, what if?
yeah.
that would be good.
That's 10 years ago and it still hasn't come to fruition. It's the same thing about selling off this or that, it could be 10 years, still, you know.
We need to
This,
deal with
this is
what we
gonna
have
hit us in
now.
the face, like,
This has to be done within the next 3 years, all these
Yeah.
improvements, so
Yeah.
we need the money, I mean,
and our commercial rates are way, way below the other surrounding communities, so,
With the 50% increase.
with a 100% increase,
yeah.
that would bring it in alignment with,
Well, when we
50
were
from the
going through
past
all
and
this
then-
last year, I did check some of the, I mean, there's a number of businesses in the area that have special arrangements that were a lot lower. Like, I was gonna say Red Cheek, whatever that is now, Overfleet, and several, and a couple others. So those are, a lot of the comparisons were more for Lehigh County businesses and things.
I wish I had that, I don't know if we have that anywhere. Michelle had actually worked with Berks County and tried to stick with
But
municipalities
then
that
she said,
were-
well, except for this and except for that, which were, you know, legitimate business in the university or whatever. But, I don't know what they want from us or now, or,
We just want to get you in the loop and have you be informed on what our needs are, and so,
Appreciate that.
instead of doing this like the last time, we
Yeah.
wanted to be.
We were blindsided.
Yes, I understand.
and none of us are sitting here saying we're thrilled to do this.
No, I can see that.
Is it offensive?
Not by any
It's
stretch of the
water now.
imagination.
'cause,
Yeah.
well, there was, let's see, there was 4%, there was 5%, and 50% for So
So the 50% that you're hearing, so if you look
Your blue sheet.
at this guy right here, okay, it actually has my name on it.
Yep.
If you see that, if you look through it, the very top one says sewer fund, the second one says water fund. And it starts in 2024, and it runs through, and you'll see it, it says year one residential increase 5%, commercial and industrial 25%. So that's telling you, so when we did this originally, when Elaine put the first one through, Stacy had, that's this one where it's like 4%. When I looked at it, I figured it out at 5%.
Is there overage, Scott, on the 4%?
Is there overage? There is overage on it, yeah.
Because I would like to see that on this paper.
We're trying to stay ahead of the 8 ball.
I understand that, but you're asking me to compare apples to apples. You're showing me overage on 5%, but not on 4%. I wanna know what the overage is on 4%.
You know, we're gonna have, we wanna have the
I'll
somebody.
get those calculations
Yeah.
done.
You know, you wanna compare apples to apples,
Might be.
but you're showing me one with overage and one without. I wanna know what the number is.
Oh, they both have overage. I think it's gonna be whatever that
This
1%.
Yes.
I can't do the math in my head, obviously.
And we can calculate that information for you. Stacy can put it in a spreadsheet. She already started it.
Like I said, we're going off of a guy that sat here and told us to do it at 10%,
yeah.
you know? And, you know, so we're trying to.
And it's not out of the question that we could possibly get some more monies from other sources.
Again, it's
One-
all what if.
Yeah, there's the what ifs, but we've got to, regardless, we've got to cover the cost of repairing this infrastructure. We have to do what we have to do.
You guys, I come back to this every time. My argument for this is the minute somebody cannot flush a toilet or does not have running water, they're going to go ballistic, and they're not gonna point the finger at you guys, they're gonna point the finger at us. You know, because no, don't get me wrong, I know what you're saying, but they're gonna come back because we're the ones that make these financial decisions and stuff like that, that we couldn't pay for something because it wasn't upkeep or whatever. And I'm just, you know, new to this, very new to this, and I'm just looking at it across the board of how not to continuously have the negative. Like, robbing Peter to pay Paul for years. Don't have that. Now, I get what Bruce is saying, yeah, hey, if it could be, you know, the overage, for argument's sake, we say this one says $487,000 over the 5 years, the 4% is probably gonna be somewhere about $430-some thousand, give or take. That's about where it's gonna be. It's gonna be somewhere else, maybe a little bit more, a little bit less. So,
And a fine example of an unexpected expense, we had to buy turbidity meters for up at the water plant, and they were, what, $25,000?
a lot.
Yeah, and that was an unexpected expense there, you know, and it's something you have to have.
yeah, the chemicals have skyrocketed.
Yeah, the chemicals, every time that a bill comes in for chemicals, they're more.
Honestly, we should be looking at our infrastructure on a schedule, and we should be collecting revenue for capital improvements moving forward, and we don't do that. We're basically looking at what is currently on our plate, and we're trying to come up with a revenue for that, but, you know, we're not looking, we should be, even with our town, and we've never done that because the costs just keep going up and up and up, and we can hardly stay ahead of what the expenses are. And we do a lot of stuff in-house to save money as well. We had to sub out everything to commercial contractors. Things would cost a lot more around here. Now, a lot of this work, unfortunately, has to be subbed out.
Yeah, 'cause that's prevailing wage.
Exactly. And that's a whole nother issue.
Bruce, give me a little bit, with Stacy and I can get you the 4% pretty quick.
Okay.
It's just a matter of going into the Excel spreadsheet and popping in the 4% or the 5%.
Yeah, I had a question too, when we were talking last year. Stacy gave us the employees and costs of the employees. I didn't quite understand all of it. I was just wondering if there was, how much of the office workers are, other grounds workers are charged to the water and sewer department. If it's just the supervisor, you know, if the water and sewer, if we were carrying more of the labor costs than is actually fair, whatever.
So part of my time, part of our treasurer's time is billed to water and sewer.
Mm-hmm.
Because the billing is done, the processing of payroll, the processing of all their invoices, yes.
Do you have a copy of the water and sewer fund itemized revenue and expenses?
I might, but these were individual people.
Yeah,
Like
so
the
what-
percentage of what is billed to, like their wages and what percent goes to water, what percent.
Something of that sort.
When you look at that budget, and Stacy might be able to calculate the numbers for you, I know I did it by hand, I have a little chicken scratch here, but, the way the accounting is with that, it itemizes out Stacy's time for management, the proportion of management of her time that's needed for that fund, and also water bills that get put out by Trina. They're on separate lines from the operators, and the operators have separate costs, and she has that all separated out in that budget. So you can actually see the costs that relate to the operators and their other workers' comp, the portion of all the stuff, insurance, whatever, it's all in
Now,
a
is
separate
it-
section.
A regular sort of street crew, is some of that,
That's in the public works.
That's
So
public works.
really,
But if they have to help out
yeah, that's.
with a break or something like
Correct.
that, we track on their time sheets, the
Okay.
actual time spent,
So-
and then bill the correct fund accordingly.
I was just wondering
it
if
is
it was
divvied
taken
up as
care
best
of.
it can be.
Yeah.
Because we have some of our workers that only work in the water and the sewer plant, our primary operators there 100% of the time. But in our water treatment plant, we have one guy that works there 25%, and that's 25% of his income comes out of the water fund, and the other portion of his
Okay.
comes out of the public works account. So we do divvy that up. Is there any other information you need from our office to make you understand all that needs to be done?
I guess just what your final, what your final percentages of increase that you would wanna have, so we figure, you know.
Yeah, like I said, I can get with her, I'll get it to Bruce as quick as I can, and he can get it to you guys if necessary.
Well, Stacy can,
Yeah,
Send it out.
Stacy,
In an email
yeah,
to
he's gonna
everybody.
email me, so
Yeah.
Okay.
I'll answer an email sooner.
Okay,
Yeah.
So I guess you guys have to figure that out amongst yourself first?
Yeah, we were talking about it tonight, but that's why we have you guys here too.
And
Was there thought of maybe having a public meeting about this?
We discussed it too. And we've already warned them about it.
we want to be, open
Yeah.
with the public so they know what's
Absolutely.
coming.
I think it would be good if we do a joint meeting like this
Yes.
when that time comes.
I like that idea.
That's fine,
Yes,
absolutely.
I like that.
I know
So-
we did put something in the last one where like, something's coming. We just obviously,
It would be
we
good if
don't
we
know.
could give a presentation to the public. I wish we had, maybe that school could give us some better optics to, put something up, because we have a terrible screen. It would be good to just kind of show people maybe something on the screen of what we're looking, this paper, that's more simplified. And we really need to have pretty much the right calculations figured out to show how much revenue needs to be gained by the increase and how much revenue we borrowed that has to be paid off.
And some of them were sitting in on that. Because, the guy was here, it was a public meeting. He was here and like I said, he blasted out 10% and even I was like, ooh. And that was in a public meeting, so they were very well aware of that part of it. For sure.
Well, he was looking
Yeah.
at like the average user and calculating numbers, which isn't really not everybody uses the same amount of gallons per quarter, so we have to really figure it out based on what we typically see and increase what we should gain.
I mean, my suggestion, if you're gonna do a public meeting, is have somebody do a PowerPoint presentation, you know, where you can just lay it out there.
Well, first we need to get the numbers, and once we have that, and you have that, and we've kind of figured that out, then we can have a public in.
None of it's good. Bottom line, it's.
Stacy, we'll have to have a meeting to initiate this, right?
Bill, when do you want a response from us?
Yeah, when would you need a response from us?
When were we saying that, like around September?
Yes.
I would like it if we could vote on this by September or October, the late, maybe the
And that way
latest.
we, because Stacy and I'll be starting on the budget too, so we know, help Stacy with budgetary.
Gives time too to have a public meeting.
Right,
Yeah.
before all of your resolution as a municipal authority has to be done, and then council's ordinance.
I just think it's fair to listen to the public.
Yeah.
You're asking them to shell 25%,
Especially the commercial,
yeah,
25.
well, it's gonna be 65% total over 5 years.
Over 5 years.
That's a lot of money.
True story, but they were also running pretty lean for years prior to that, so they
Yeah.
kinda,
They were getting residential rates.
they were getting residential rates there for a little while, so, I mean, it kinda comes out
And Fleetwood has over
karma.
2 times the users we have, and their rates are, you go to Lions or Bowers, and that's a very small system, they're really getting hit, I don't know what their rates are, but I don't.
Yeah. When you say Fleetwood,
Fleetwood's a bigger community,
Well,
so.
Bacon
they're-
Creek is a separate authority,
Right,
separate. yeah.
Right, so, their rates are different because they have more users. If we have more users to spread this infrastructure improvement cost over, these numbers would be much, much different.
I know my daughter lives in Lyons and her water bill had been higher than what ours was for her, because they get billed monthly. Lyons gets billed monthly, and she said, I'll take your water bill for 3 months, and you pay mine for 3 months.
Yeah, that's why I was saying DECA was offering to help if it somehow, like relatives are refused.
Yeah, she
Because we're still on
she's just like, and she's a one and a half when everyone sounds there.
So we have a plan and we're good with that, and now we just need a motion for adjournment.
I'll make the motion.
I'll say.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Thank you for coming.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
If you have questions, feel free to
I know it's
contact me.
I live basically across from
I just have to turn off the.
yes.
We don't do
The
it.
side where you just have to turn off the camera on the other side. Usually use her as a reference too.
Just a